I guess we're maybe quickly, we've got a few minutes. I'd like to bring Dr. King into this because the Council of Elders really has made a commitment to using his 1967 Riverside Church speech, uh, Beyond Vietnam or Breaking the Silence, it's called, as a kind of lens for reading the moment. And that speech uh, was exactly 1 year before his assassination, and in some ways directly connected to it.
Mhm.
And in the speech, he said that the prophetic vocation was a vocation of agony. And then what strikes me is he says, being a preacher, it won't surprise you, got 7 reasons for opposing the war in Vietnam. And the first three are it's a racist war, it's a war on the poor, and my country's the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today. That if you, for those watching who know the speech, those are the giant triplets that he later names racism, uh,
Materialism.
militarism, and extreme materialism, right? But then the last 4 reasons are really personal, real vocational, and directly connected to who he is. He says, I'm a civil rights leader, and he got a lot of heat in advance and after for sort of not staying in his lane. You know, he got the whole SCLC board said, don't come out like that, except James Bevel. Um, but he said the motto of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was to heal the soul of the nation.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm called to do. He said his fifth reason was he'd received the Nobel Peace Prize, and that had called him onto a global stage, a call to speak internationally. And I won't mention how the Peace Prize has been treated in recent months, kind of as a idol of self-justification to be hung on the wall as a plaque. Anyway, he says his sixth reason is that he's a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Um, and that there's so much that's packed into that, you know, really his calling from being a young person and having that tested throughout. Uh, and you'd think that would about wrap it up, but he's got one more, and it's I'm a child of the living God. I'm a human being, and my solidarity with all of humanity calls me to resist. Um, so I guess I'd welcome any response to that vocational and basically religious opposition that he's bringing out of the black church, as you say, out of the black confessing church in the U.S. Uh,
Yeah,
really, I think that is how he's speaking of out of.
yeah.
Mhm.
King is one of the most important interpreters of that tradition. He didn't invent the tradition. Um, he didn't write the tradition. He is an interpreter of it. Um, a son of that Black social gospel tradition, of that Black abolitionist gospel Civil War tradition. Um,
Mhm.
and you're right. I mean, he was a bad guy in many in the eyes of a nation when he made that speech. He was
Mhm.
not the beloved Dr. King that he is today. He is sa-
Right.
he is safely dead now.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
prior to that, he was a militant
Right.
leader of saying things that they did not like, and this
Mhm.
is one of them. Stay in your lane and talk about, black people stuff. I mean, this is among black preachers as well, but don't make that move into the international order. But you said something that was I don't want to highlight solidarity with people.
Mhm.
To bring a bookend here, as opposed to sitting high and looking low, separate from the world. This
Mhm.
solidarity, like Reverend Naomi's father also said, connection with each other, that what hurts you hurts me. This is
Right.
this is another way of recognizing our relationality to God, not in submission to the one who's out there and separate and on high, but in loving your neighbor as yourself,
mm, mm, mm,
relating to each other in social contact, much the same way we must relate to the rest of creation, not in practices of sol of domination, and use as resources,
mhm,
but as things in sustainable relationship with each other that we care for the community. That's what King was doing. This is what King was talking about.
mm,
Injustice there is injustice here,
Right.
because you're having these poor black young men going over there killing poor Vietnamese people, and this, at the same in the context of being citizens in a country that they don't have any rights in.
mhm,
Right.
mhm. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it is, and it is the gospel, right? The gospel says that the gospel, the letters too, say we are members of one body, right? And that the church is the body of Christ. And what happens to one member cannot be ignored by the rest of the body. That you can't say, oh well, that was just my finger, so I will ignore that. That the finger is a part of the body, and it is all of the members are of infinite worth in the sight of the God who created us, and should be in our relations with one another. And I
Yeah.
think that it is this ability to other for whatever reason, whether it is that they're an immigrant or their color or their gender or their sexual orientation, that all of that is a a fake demarcation that we have been taught makes us closer to power in some way. If that person is less than, then that makes me more than, even when my reality is clearly showing me that I am not being perceived as more than, as of value. I, I I think that the greatest propaganda machine that the world has ever seen has to be the U.S. propaganda that convinced people dying of illness that they did not want universal health care because it would be accessible to those whom they knew as other, particularly poor white people saying, I don't want health care because it might be given to poor black people.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that
Goodness.
Hmm.
the the book Dying of Whiteness
I knew
was
you were
for
going
me.
there. I was just about to talk about that. Yeah.
I mean, it was for me such a, this is it, folks. It should be read in every single church in our nation,
Mm.
particularly the white churches who
Yep.
have allowed people to truly believe that they are benefiting from the oppression of others.
Yep.
And the
Hmm.
only benefit they
Hmm.
have is psychological.
So the boys called the wages of whiteness.
Yes.
Yep. Kind of a
Yeah.
psychological wage.
Right.
Right. Yep. And that psychological wage kills. It kills you too. It
Mhm.
kills the hater. Yeah. Yeah. I read somewhere after the bus boycott. This goes to show how the Christianity works in there as well. That a number of people who would have ordinary white folks who would ordinarily have ridden the bus refused to get on the bus. One young man was quoted as saying that he'd rather die and go to hell than sit behind a black person on the bus. Can you imagine
Yeah.
what a world to be living in? That your eternal salvation is much less important to you than your status as a white man in a hierarchical society on a bus.
Mm-hmm. On a bus.
On a bus. That's madness.
Mm.
Hmm.
That's madness. Much the same as in the introduction to that book, Dying of Whiteness, that man with the terminal illness refused to accept the expansion of Medicaid or
Right.
into his state because it would benefit welfare queens. And so he refused, died from the illness that could have been treated and
Mhm.
preserved his life if he had just accepted the medical care that was beneficial for any and everybody who needed it. He
Right.
Hmm.
needed that sit high and look low status.
Hmm. I was thinking how earlier Naomi had mentioned the church abdicating, Christians abdicating responsibility. It was echoing for me the Baldwin quote that's kind of behind this series, that if we don't abdicate responsibility, we begin again. And I guess I keep asking this in different ways. Are there signs of beginning again? Or yeah, that's
Yeah,
are there,
yeah.
do you see signs?
Um, you wanna give
No, go ahead. Go right ahead.
yeah. Well, I'm currently finishing chapter 4 in a manuscript that is talking about the efforts to address society's troubles, but not being able to see presumptions that have us repeating the problems as we are trying to address them. Some of the presumptions are this relational structure that we work with. And so, I mean, I'll take, for example, I don't write about this, but this is a good example, is George Whitefield, the divine dramatist, founder of Methodism,
Mhm.
could wow a crowd with his extemporaneous preaching outdoors and get people whipped up. And is initially preaching against the cruelties of slavery, but never against the institution of slavery itself. It's
Mm.
about the cruelties of slavery. And then he buys property in Georgia, finds himself with all of his property and the difficulties of maintaining the property because he's never really been in opposition to the institution of slavery, just the way that you treat the slaves. He then starts arguing for a few of those Negroes on his own property and helps to bring slavery to Georgia.
Mm.
What is this presumption that he's working with that has him actually working against the well-being of the people that he's arguing in favor of at least their treatment? It's the presumption that slavery is somehow benevolent, has the ability to be benevolent, that the status of the Negro has the ability to be, somehow agreeable if we treat the people beneath us better than we would when we treat the people beneath us cruel. These
Mm.
kind of presumptions. And we might say that, history is just rife with
Yeah.
with the trauma of unsurfaced presumptions that cause harm.
Mm.
In his book, I'm sorry, in his essay on the angel of history, Walter Benjamin describes history in this way, and your listeners may know this. So pardon me if you know this already, and I'm going to paraphrase it. That the angel of history, feet facing forward, head facing behind, looking back, as a a wreckage continues to pile up at his feet.
Mm.
Carnage piling up at his feet. You might say the dead, you might say catastrophe piling up at his feet. He wants to reach and help and fix this history,
Mm.
but there's a storm blowing from the future that is caught up in his wings. Call it a tornado or something, or a hurricane. It's caught up in his wings so violently that he can't close them, and he's propelled towards the future in this contorted gaze back in sadness and in empathy. Benjamin calls that progress.
Mm.
This is progress. This is moving forward, looking at the past, looking at what has happened behind with empathy and sadness while being propelled towards the future. How are we doing that right now? How this is happening while the carnage is being laid at our feet, and we move forward with empathy or sadness over what was, trying to find a way to remedy this as we move forward. I'll contrast that with the Sankofa bird,
Mm.
Mm.
where there's another one looking back, retrieving from the ancestors what wisdom that was there, what good that we knew in that moment to overcome the struggles that we were facing at the moment. With the Sankofa's bird, the Sankofa's feet are also facing forward
Mhm.
with an egg in its beak, looking back. It is retrieving something. But here's the caveat: it's an egg. You hold
Mm.
it too tightly, you're going to crush it and lose it. If you hold it too loosely, you're going to drop it and lose it.
Mm.
Be careful how you treat the wisdom of the elders and how you regard the wisdom of the elders as we move forward, but we must have that wisdom as we move forward. The wisdom of the elders is with us. They know this catastrophe. They know
Mm.
this evil. We are not standing on our own in
Right.
this moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Well, I want to say thanks to the both of you for
Thank
bringing to
you.
bear bringing to bear the wisdom of the elders, for honoring your vocations in the present moment in such powerful ways, and helping us as a wide crew here to think about this moment and what's being called of each of us, uh, deeper and deeper, I would say, into risk and resistance. So thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.